So since I have 6:15, I will call the Brattleboro Select Board regular meeting of March 16th, 2021 back to order. We did meet briefly at 5:30, so we know the meeting has been properly warned. We quickly went into a brief executive session, and we're done about 20 minutes ago, 25 minutes ago, perhaps. Our next order of business is to approve the minutes of March 2nd. Liz.
I move to approve the minutes of March 2nd.
Thank you, Liz. Your audio is...
Is it still bad?
Much better. No, it's much better.
Oh,
much
okay.
better. Liz has moved to approve the minutes of March 2nd. All those in favor, please raise your hand and say aye.
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 Aye. 4-0. Thank you. I am going to forgo chair's remarks. I do have none, and I do want to leave plenty of time for Peter, who has some important infrastructure announcements for us and heads up to a lot of commuters, etc. Peter?
Yes, thank you. So that is going to be happening here in just a moment. We'll ask Steve Barrett to join us and provide an update to the community about the two different infrastructure challenges that we suddenly faced yesterday morning and are in the midst of dealing with. Before that, I do have actually a town manager's comment of my own to offer. And I know that I'm offering this not just on behalf of myself, but the entire town staff and in fact, the select board and so many people in the community as well. Tonight is the end of an era in multiple different ways, actually. But one of the ways is that it is the final select board meeting for Jan Anderson as the executive secretary in the town manager's office. She will be with us through the end of this month. She's been diligently preparing Jessica Stickler to assume that role on April 1st. And Jessica is ready for that. The handoff has been terrific. Working with the two of them these last couple of months has been great. But Jan has been, the steady rock through much of the work that we do in town government and the way in which we serve the community. And right here in these select board meetings, she is the continuity over the last 11 years. So longer than any of the current select board members, longer than me, longer than Patrick. There are department heads certainly who have served longer, but are here occasionally when they need to be. Jan has been here every other Tuesday night and then some for the last 11 years. And in that way and in so many other ways has provided amazing service to the community. So I wanted to take a moment tonight and thank Jan.
Thank you, Jan.
Absolutely.
Thanks, Jan.
Thank you so much, Jan. It will not be the same around here.
We putting you on screen?
We aren't able to
don't
put her on screen, unfortunately. There she is, waving.
Waving.
Yeah.
TMS.
Yep.
Yes, thank you again, Jan.
And with that, I will ask that Patrick bring up Steve Barrett, both visually and for his audio so that he can provide us the update regarding the wall at the Whetstone Pathway and the water main break at the lower Main Street intersection.
Good evening.
Steve?
So it's been an interesting week. Problems seem to find us this week. We're not seeking out these situations. I received a phone call that a section of the retaining wall near the Whetstone Pathway had collapsed. Upon arrival on the scene, we identified about a 30 by 10 foot section of wall that had released and fallen into the brook. So the Public Works Department stabilized the area. We shut down the pedestrian bridge. We notified Renault Construction. We notified engineering, and we notified the state stream people. We have a meeting on Thursday with the state engineer for streams. And so we're going to look at the situation. The original pathway was put in 2004. It was a state PED project, bicycle project. And, it served quite well, but it was constructed over some old infrastructure. The old Windham mill was there, and that was a canal. It's called Canal Street for a reason. There was water power in that area, and there's old retaining walls. So everyone was aware of that at the time, and it was taken in consideration during the construction. But now we're faced with, we need to make this repair. So what we're looking at is going to be a phased approach. My biggest concern right now is with spring runoff. You got this gapping hole that's open and is very vulnerable to additional wear or removal of the walls that are in place there. So I'm concerned about the damage there. So the first phase, if you will, of this project will be to protect what we have, what is intact. And so we're going to look at that strategy with a state stream engineer. Also, we'll hire an engineer and Renault Construction, who has the ability to repair these type of things. We brought him on board right off. So we need that expertise to come up with a strategy. This would be what you might call like a design build. Okay, we're going to look at the situation. We're going to figure out how to determine, and we're going to make sure that it's approved by an engineer and it's a good method. So that first phase will be to stabilize. And then after that, we can take a breath, and it will give us time to determine what will be the final fix. So we can go into a design. We'll come back before the board. We'll probably get some estimates on the cost and go from there. So this initial is really an emergency. Let's stabilize the situation. So tomorrow, we're actually going to remove the whetstone pathway bridge. Now, Renault actually put that bridge in place when it was put in 2004. And we do have engineering design that tells us how to remove that bridge and correctly. So we're going to dismantle it. It will all stay in one piece, but there's certain pieces that may have come out of the wooden decking. And that's where the straps from the crane will attach. So we'll pick that up and we're going to remove it. We're looking at trying to put that on a flatbed and actually put it to a safe location. If we're not successful there, then we'll have to leave it in the Preston lot, which would, take up half the parking lot, but we'll have to deal with that. So tomorrow, what we want to do is make sure that bridge is taken off. That will protect it. If for some reason there's further damage, we don't lose our bridge. It's very important. It's very expensive. So we can stabilize that and make sure it's okay. So that's where we're at right now. It's kind of a fast moving. A lot of things have been done here. And we'll continue to work on that. We'll continue to update the board on where we're at. So I don't know if anybody has any questions about that before I move on to the second situation that we have. I can overview, we do have a leak on Main Street. I can go over that now and we can ask questions at the end, I guess.
Yeah, that'd be fine. Thanks, Steve.
Okay. So the other situation is we have a water leak on Bridge Street, which is a lot of people think of it more as like Route 119 that goes over to Hinsdale. It's at the lower part of the intersection of Main Street in front of Plaza Park, somewhere in that area. We weren't sure at first. The water was surfacing on Bridge Street halfway down. And there's a lot of elements there. The old railroad diner used to sit on the bank there. And there's a water service that still goes to that. So we were hoping, maybe that was it. That wasn't it. There's an old water service that goes to Plaza Park. That could be the problem. We did shut off the line that goes down. It feeds the whetstone and it feeds Burroughs Coal. We're concerned about putting that business out without water. It's only an 1.5 inch line, and we determined when we shut it off, it just didn't. We really figured out it wasn't that 1.5 inch line, that it was further out somewhere. So we got these what they call correlators that are leak detectors. We went down really early in the morning. When I say we, it was the crew, not Steve. The crew went down early this morning, and they think they have a pretty good location on where this leak is. So it's going to be in the middle of the intersection, which is quite awkward. As you know, there's so much traffic. It's difficult as it is. So we're going to approach this tomorrow, starting at 9 o'clock at night. We've hired the sheriff's department, so they have blue lights down there and safety. And we will work throughout the night. And we're hoping to be completed by 6 a.m. the next morning. And when we get done, we hope to have made a repair or found either an old line that went to Plaza Park or a crack in the pipe or whatever, make the repair. And then we'll put cold patch on that surface to kind of protect it. Cold patch is a temporary hot mix repair that we'll have to put there until the hot mix plant's open. So we're pretty optimistic with all the research we've done. The crew has been working on this since Saturday. And we think we've narrowed down where the problem is, and hopefully, we'll have all the parts in place and to be able to make this repair tomorrow into Thursday morning. So that's my report. And if you have any questions, the water leak is more of a nuisance than it is a monetary issue compared to the whetstone wall. That's a bigger item. It's more expensive. There's a retaining wall. There's engineering. There's a lot more to it. But the water leak is more of an inconvenience, and I think we're doing a good job to accommodate the traffic by working at night. It's also easier for us and safer for us too. And that's my report.
Thanks, Steve. I think we have a couple questions. Liz?
Steve, I was just confused. Did you turn off the water to the whetstone and is it still off?
And we turned it off to do some testing, okay? And then we regulated different valves in the system and tried, we actually got on with listening devices. And in the end, we felt, because it's an 1.5 inch line, with the amount of water that was leaking, that it probably wasn't the line that feeds the whetstone, because they probably wouldn't have had enough water pressure really to operate. So it's kind of a process of elimination of turning valves on, turning valves, off and then back on, and then using listening devices. So in the end,
Great.
We don't feel it's the copper line that feeds that, Bridge Street Depot. We feel it's a larger main or a corporation that goes to either Plaza Park or something we just don't know about.
Thank you.
And Steve, is the you think it's at Malfunction Junction, as we affectionately call it?
We've got a few maps of piping, where it was installed and taken measurements. And if you face Plaza Park, there's 2 pillars right towards the entrance.
Yeah.
And the ties are about 30 feet off those 2 columns, pulling 2 ties about 30 feet. So it's going to be almost in front of that area right there.
Right in the roadway, most likely.
Right in the roadway. And it's, it's difficult there for like truck traffic that comes down Route 5 and has to go onto Vernon Road. We're pretty much in the way. So that's why this work is going to be important to do at night.
Okay. But you don't anticipate a full closure of any road, just a lot of patient.
That's correct. We'll make sure the lights are on flash. And again, we're going to have the sheriff's department. We contacted them and we're able to have them on site with the blue lights, so they can help direct traffic if we need to. But we hope there isn't too much at, a little after 9, probably around midnight. It's going to get pretty quiet.
Great. Well, thank you very much. I know Ian has arrived. Hi, Ian. I thought I would just let you, if you had any questions for Steve, but I don't think you've heard everything that he said. So it's about the emergency repair that has to start at Malfunction Junction starting at 9 p.m. tomorrow. So
I don't have any questions.
Thanks. Welcome. Anyway. Oh, Daniel.
Yeah, thanks. Steve, I appreciate all of the work that's gone into this over this last few days and the work that will go in over the next few days as well to all the folks that are working on it. I don't know if you or Peter are the holder of the answer to this question, but it's the one that I imagine many folks are thinking. Where does this money come from? I don't care how much it is. I mean, obviously at some point we do care to a certain extent, but like it needs to be safe, it needs to be fixed. But I'm just kind of curious where it comes from.
Yep. So the lesser expense will come right out of the utilities budget. That's water main repair or water line repair, and it's, we have a line item within the utilities budget for that kind of maintenance. We do some of it every year. Sometimes it's in a significant and visible location like this, and sometimes they're in, smaller, less impactful situations. But as Steve pointed out, that's not really a financial concern for us. We'll need to get a handle on the magnitude of what the wall and bridge situation is going to cost. We'll come back to the board in the meantime with information as we develop that, and we'll certainly report back out to the public about it as well. At some point, there'll need to be an emergency authorization by the board for the expenses we're going to incur, because it's going to be a substantial expense that is unbudgeted. So at this point, it would be irresponsible to speculate on, how much and exactly from where we would draw it, but we'll speak to that more explicitly once we're able to come back and talk about what we believe it's going to cost.
Thanks.
All right. Well, if there's no further questions, thank you, Steve, for the report.
Thank you.
Good luck with the work.
Okay. Good night.
Good night.
Good night. I did
See you
see.
tomorrow.
Yeah. Yes, I was going to make a crack about everything happening just in time for St. Patrick's Day, but I think I made that joke last week. We had a hand up and now it's down. So I think we'll move on to, that was within manager's comments, and you're all set with your comments, Peter?
I am. Thank you.
Thanks for that sort of special update. We next come to select board comments and committee reports. Anyone have anything for us? If not, Daniel.
I'll double down on my thanks to town staff for all the emergency response work that they've been doing. And I want to just note that in addition to this being Jan's sort of coming to the end of things time, it is also Brandy's last select board meeting, unless there's some emergency select board meeting that happens between now and Monday, which hopefully there won't be. And I just want to say thank you for all the work that you've done on the board. And, I've enjoyed working with you and look forward to continuing to work with you in all kinds of different ways. So thank you.
Thank you, Daniel. You actually beat me to it, because I was going to sneak in there, even though I forego my chair's comments. My comment now is just as a regular select board member, because Brandy and I got elected together, and it was, standing outside in those freezing temperatures, holding that sign. I think I'll post that to my page soon, but it's been quite a 4 years, Brandy, and you will be missed. Ian.
Yeah, I just wanted to first apologize for my tardiness. And also, acknowledge both Brandy, your last meeting, and also the last meeting of the 2020-2021 select board. And as this being my first year on this board, I've just really appreciated working with all of you, and I'm excited for the future.
Has it only been a year?
Yeah.
Honestly, did you do that too? I was also thinking,
Yeah.
hasn't it been 2? I don't know. Last year was 3 years to me. Liz.
I just wanted to thank Brandy again for her service, and also for the gracious manner with which she chaired the select board the previous year.
Indeed. Brandy, you don't have to be called on. Whoop, I'm not sure we can hear you. You have that double mute going on, which I do too sometimes.
There we go. That should be better.
Yeah.
So, yep, it's my last meeting, and I've had kind of one of those weird emotional weeks. Maybe it's March or pandemic or whatever. And so this has been emotional as well. And I'm sure I'll have smarter things to say some other time. I was trying to figure out if I had one thing I wanted to say. And then I realized I already said it, and Olga wrote it down. And so I don't have to remember. And so this is was like, yes, this is the score. And my favorite, what I would want to say is for people, when you come to this board, remember that there's privilege that comes with stepping onto this board. You're going to be introduced to networks of people that other people might not understand how to get into. You're going to know the emails of the right systems to send people to. Use your privilege. And I think what I said to Olga is, whenever possible, throw your weight around for someone else who can't. It's a brief stint, whether it's 1 year, 7 years, as far as in the world of huge change, but you can really make an incredible difference at the local level if you're willing to be brave. And I'm gonna miss this, although spaghetti and meatball cooking with my kids tonight was pretty great too, and I think I'll find ways to fill my time.
Thanks, Brandy. Outstanding. Yes. Change is inevitable and good.
Mhm.
And we're all going to do well going forward. Next, we have public participation. I have done this so many times, it feels like now, but I'll do it again. To participate, you want to make sure you find the participants button towards the bottom of your screen on Zoom, and that will bring up a list of participants tonight. Right now, I'm looking at 24, and I see that Gary Stroud is demonstrating a blue hand raise at the moment. But anyway, at that participant level, is on that sidebar that comes up, you will find a hand raise function towards the bottom, depending on which version you have. So to demonstrate, we have Gary, who would like to ask a question or make a quick comment. Welcome, Gary.
Well, once I get my, boy, I tell you, every time, Tim, you mention a hand raise, mine's this, I think it's set at automatic.
I mean, you said it, Gary, not us.
So I think it's already been incorporated, so I don't have to worry about Zoom. Is just great. You got to love it. But Brandy, I just wanted to say we all love you. We're going to miss you. We know we'll see you out there doing great things and other endeavors, and looking forward to seeing you out there and doing other things and improving the community for better things and great things. And I wish you the best of luck as well also. Also for Jan, who was the glue to all of us. I think we're going to say that we're all going to love and miss her as well too. She was the glue that held all this together as well also, keeping the Zoom meetings and everything together. She was the go-to person for me. And I tell you, she's going to be missed as well too. I hope to see her also every now and then, and wish her the best as well, the same too. I had a question I was going to ask Steve about with the water main down the street. Would that interfere with the water up on Canal Street being shut off for a time being? I think that was the question. And is there any way they're going to be calling out? So that's not going to interfere with Canal Street at all, Peter? Okay.
No. Just in a more isolated spot down at the bottom of the hill.
Okay. Gotcha. And the second and final question, this is for RTM. On the articles, was this mentioned also with what the recommendations were for CSRT? Is that going to be also on the agenda for this Saturday? Was that something we were going to vote on? I don't know. Daniel's shaking his head no. So when was that article, I guess, going to be resurrected or brought to the attention of the people for consideration or voting? Peter?
Yeah. May I speak to that?
Sure.
So that's what we addressed a couple of select board meetings ago on March 2nd. Actually, last select board meeting. The time flies, especially in March. So on at the last select board meeting, there was an item for the select board to consider the next steps in that process. And I recommended and the board approved that we move forward with the body of work, not to actually differentiate among specific pieces of the 41 recommendations, but to move forward on the body of work and to come back together in the summertime and take stock of the progress that we're making and look at that time about any kind of more specific direction that might be needed or prioritizing among the different recommendations so that we can actually begin to find our way forward. And so there'll be work ongoing within town staff, within folks out in the community, and among us together, along with some other agencies that are outside of town government. That'll be ongoing over the next weeks and few months, and then we'll come back and see what progress we're making and where we go from there. The only policy question that was presented in the recommendations that needed immediate action by the board and would be at all related to the representative town meeting on Saturday was the level of funding for police training. There was a specific budget recommendation related to that. The select board accepted the recommendation of the committee and maintained level funding rather than increasing that training line item within the police budget. So the budget that is before representative town meeting on Saturday reflects that particular recommendation. That is the only one that has a specific impact on this budget that's before representative town meeting. In the work that we do between now and next year, there may well be additional things that would be, subject to town meeting action, and there will certainly be many actions taken within town operations and by the select board.
Okay, appreciate that. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen, and please continue. Enjoy the rest of your day.
Okay, Gary, see you Saturday. All right, so I think we can move on unless anyone has anything else for public participation. Next up, we need to be convened as health commissioners, so I would entertain a motion to that regard.
I move to convene as health commissioners.
Is that the word, convene? I keep changing it.
Yeah.
That is the word.
Okay, good. It's so much better than magically become.
Hey,
All those in
say.
favor of convening as health commissioners, say aye and raise your hand. Aye.
Aye.
And that's 5-0. Thank you. We are going to hear from Peter Elwell.
Thank you. This item is pretty well a ministerial action that we're asking you to take tonight. It's a part of another transition that we're experiencing in town government with the retirement of Mike Bacassi after 43 years with the town and the last 14 years as our fire chief. He'll be retiring on the same day as Jan at the end of this month. Lenny Howard moves up to fire chief, as you well know. And Chuck Keir, currently a captain in the fire department, will become the assistant chief. And it is part of the structure of how we function within town government in terms of the distribution of responsibilities on the town team, that the assistant fire chief also acts as the town's health officer. And you've been really familiar with that in terms of some of the leadership that Lenny has provided on particular health matters, in terms of some of the enforcement that's required within that function, as well as in the creation of the more robust rental housing inspection program and some of the other ways in which his work as health officer has brought him here to select board meetings. As he moves up to fire chief, and Chuck Keir moves into the position of assistant chief, we need to go through a process with the state of Vermont, who is actually the appointing authority over the health officers for all the different communities around the state. So Lenny has resigned as the town's health officer effective with that transition on April 1st. And the paperwork that's in front of you this evening is the way in which the select board makes a recommendation to the state of Vermont to appoint Chuck Keir, soon to be assistant chief Keir, to fulfill the part of that position's responsibilities that are the town's, being the town's health officer.
Thank you. Peter, board, is that pretty straightforward for everyone?
Mm-hmm.
Great.
Yeah.
Well, aside from saying congratulations to Chuck, does anyone have a motion?
Sure. I'll pluck one out of thin air. How about this? I move to recommend the appointment of Charles Keir III as the health officer for the town of Brattleboro.
Thanks, Daniel. Daniel has moved to recommend the appointment of Charles Keir III as our health officer for the town of Brattleboro. All those members in favor, please raise your hand and say aye.
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 5-0. Thank you very much. And I'll need a motion to deconvene. No, that's not it.
Adjourn.
Adjourn. I knew that when I was playing with you. I'll need a motion to adjourn, please.
I move that we adjourn as Water and Sewer Commissioners. Is that what it was?
Yes, it was. Thank you, Ian.
No, it wasn't.
Health
Health
Commissioners.
Oh, no.
Sorry. I knew
Didn't
I
you
got it
feel
wrong.
the difference?
I could feel, yeah. I move that we adjourn as Health Commissioners.
Yeah, I'm dialing it in tonight. Ian has moved to adjourn as Health Commissioners. All those in favor, please raise your hand. Say aye. Aye.
Aye.
5-0. Thank you. And next, I must ask for a motion to become Water and Sewer Commissioners, to convene as Water and Sewer Commissioners. Liz.
I move to convene as Water and Sewer Commissioners.
All right. Liz has done so. All those in favor to convene as Water and Sewer Commissioners, raise your hand. Say aye.
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 5-0. And I see Dan Tyler is with us. And unless Peter wants to set this up, I think Dan Tyler is going to tell us about an insertion valve.
Yes, good evening. Last fall during flushing, we determined that we have a inoperable valve on one of the 16-inch transmission mains. This valve is located on the east end of Melrose Street, right at the bridge. So as you know, that's a narrow, busy section of road. Replacing that valve would be really difficult. Right at that point, the main turns and goes down Melrose Street. So we're proposing to install a insertion valve on Melrose Street on that portion of the main. These valves are important in case there's a break. We can isolate the flow. And also during flushing, we use the valves to reroute the water through the mains to have a better cleaning effect. Typically on a water main, we would shut the main down, cut the valve out, and install a new valve. On this situation, it's one of the main 16-inch transmission mains, and also the fact that one of the valves isn't working, we're unable to really isolate a reasonable section of water main. It would mean an interruption to quite a few services in that area, and it would make the process difficult because there'd just be so much more water to deal with and whatnot. So the insertion valve, they can come in, the contractor comes in, we dig the hole, they come in and they install the valve without shutting the water off. It's they install a saddle on the main, cut into the main, and install the valve. So that's what we're proposing for a fix. We think that's the best fix. When we started researching insertion valves, we haven't used this technology. We talked to suppliers and contractors. We put it out to bid, received 2 bids. They were both the same price, both $26,500. We went back to our research. One of the companies, Underground Testing and Services, was recommended by a local contractor that we do a lot of work with, as well as one of our main pipe suppliers. They both have experience with this contractor, and therefore we're recommending we go with that bid. The other contractor, we don't know anything about. They saw the ad and bid on it, and we feel more comfortable with the one that we have the recommendation for. So.
Do you think they know each other?
I'm sure. I don't think there's many people that do this.
It's just remarkable that they had the exact same bid. So.
Yeah.
Good. Questions, board? Ian.
Yeah. Hey, Dan. The insertion valve being tech that we haven't utilized before in Brattleboro, do we have everything we need to maintain it and service it should there be any kind of issue down the line?
Yeah, once it's installed, it's essentially a valve like any other valve we have. It operates similarly. You can get parts for it. There's several different valves within the system, and we don't stock parts for all of them now, but they would be available if needed. And also, back to the valve that's not working, having this in place down the road would allow us to isolate a smaller section of main, and we're thinking that maybe the time to replace that other valve would be when that Melrose Bridge is replaced down the road, a couple of years, several years, because they'll have that area disrupted then. So we could put the existing valve back online or eliminate it. I guess we wouldn't need it at that point, but we could remove it from the system.
Okay, thank you very much.
Okay, pretty straightforward, sounds like. Board, Daniel.
Dan, I hope you're getting enough sleep.
I wasn't going to say it.
Thanks for all the work. Appreciate it.
Of course, thanks for all the work. All right, board. Any motions floating around out there?
I can do one. I move to award a bid to Underground Testing and Services LLC in the amount of $26,500 to install an insertion valve.
Thanks, Brandy. Brandy has made an award, a motion to award a bid to Underground Testing and Services LLC in the amount of $26,500 to install an insertion valve. All those board members in favor, raise your hand and say aye. Aye.
Aye.
5-0. Thank you. And a motion to, I'm sorry?
Thank you.
Oh,
Thank you. Thanks, Dan. Do I have a motion to adjourn as Water and Sewer Commissioners? Liz?
I move to adjourn as Water and Sewer Commissioners.
Liz has moved to adjourn as Water and Sewer. All those in favor, please say aye. Aye.
Aye.
And I'm assuming Brandy is in favor.
It's like a Alfred Hitchcock movie outside my window right now.
The crows?
Yes.
Which movie?
The birds. It's a
The crows have done that to my tree as well. I think they pick different trees. It's pretty neat.
That was a lot. So sorry, I was a little distracted.
Okay, well, to recap, that was a 5-0 adjournment of Water and Sewer Commissioners. So we move on to new business, and I believe Peter has something for us concerning financial report.
I do. I have the monthly financial report. When it's finished, this is a night full of surprises. I'm going to need to step away just for a minute. So I'll turn off my camera and I'll mute my mic, but I'll be back in probably 5 minutes or less. But first, we'll do the financial report.
Are you okay to go ahead, or
I am. Yeah, thanks for asking. I'm good. I just need to step away for a minute and check on something. So in the financial report, there's nothing new here, but I do want to stress one thing that the select board is well aware of, and people who pay close attention to town government are well aware of, because we've been reporting on it for the last several months. But in our new practice with the heavy agendas that we've had in recent months and using the consent agenda, the monthly financial report has been on that consent agenda now since last November, which was when I first reported to the board and to the public that the COVID impacts on the revenues in the parking fund have been very significant. There's actually an interesting overlap with the description that Steve gave earlier tonight about removing the bridge. We are going to try to actually take it away for safekeeping, as he described. The fallback is to situate it properly within the Preston parking lot so that it can be protected there. And I almost mentioned at that time, I think it's more appropriate to this report because of the whole impact on the revenues, that we just aren't seeing the demand for obvious reasons because of COVID. So many people working from home, people not going out socially because of COVID. There's underutilization of our parking resources. And so on any given day, if you go to the Preston parking lot, you'll see that most of the spaces are available. There's only, some of them being used. That's true to a more or lesser extent at the various facilities in our parking system. Some of them are getting more use. Many of them are getting, are noticeably underutilized this year. So back to the point of how that's affecting town finances, we've been fortunate that in most of the COVID related impacts, we've been able to manage those so that there's really no material impact on town finances within the general fund or within the utilities fund. But in the parking fund, because it is a fund that operates on its own revenues, it's an enterprise fund, it operates like a small business. Our expenses are going to exceed our revenues this year for FY21. And so we will have an operating deficit, and there's a possibility we might have to make a transfer from the general fund to the parking fund at the end of the fiscal year to cover that loss. Up until now, we have not expected that year-end deficit to be large enough in the parking fund to require that kind of a transfer. But we're becoming concerned that might be possible. We are further into the year. We're 2/3 of the way through the fiscal year now. And we're doing some analysis with Lori Garland, the acting finance director, and we'll have something more definitive to say about this in next month's report. But for now, I just wanted to call out that we've seen this coming. The magnitude of it is a little, less than fully defined at this point because it depends on, sort of how things go in the next 4 months. But the parking fund is a concern for us at this point. Everything else is right on cue, where you would expect it to be 2/3 of the way through the fiscal year. We're at about 63% of expenditures in the general fund. We are at 64% of expenditures in the parking fund. It's the revenues that are way down. In the utilities fund, we're at about 61% of expenditures. So all right about where you'd expect. From these monthly reports that the solid waste numbers are always a little trickier to explain because we're always running a month behind in the receipts and the expenses because of how that functions in terms of what is paid out to the provider of the bags and other services, and then what we receive in revenue. But that also, the solid waste operation also is as expected. And as you know, it's becoming part of the general fund. So that particular piece will be, just sort of absorbed by our operations in the general fund as we go forward.
Thanks, Peter. Liz?
It really is great that that's the only municipal revenue stream that's impacted by COVID. But I was just wondering, is there some way to recoup that with COVID federal funding?
Yeah, up until this week, the answer was no. But while we don't know nearly enough to talk fully and intelligently about the municipal piece of the $1.9 trillion package that has been approved by the federal government and is going to come down through the state government, we do know that there is at least some of that, perhaps a lot of it, that will require that municipalities that receive that funding demonstrate that it is offsetting lost revenue that can be, where you can show the proof that a business would show that, a lot of the earlier COVID relief required businesses to show what a year ago their revenue and expenses looked like and show how that was different during COVID. And then they were eligible for a certain amount of relief as a result of those calculations. Municipalities will be in very much that same position for at least some of the funds that are coming down from this newest federal relief package. So I do believe we're going to be able to, in the longer run of things, recapture some of this loss. In the shorter run, it's one of the reasons why we have that 10% standard in for the unassigned fund balance in the general fund. It is the money that is available to us that is more, to help us be able to independently deal with an emergency circumstance. And so in the short run, that's where we would look to make sure that the operations of the parking fund continue, would be for the general fund to prop it up. There's a very good chance we might be able to backfill with federal money.
That's great.
That's a good question, Liz. I actually, even honestly, looking at this decline in the revenues, it could have easily been even worse. So
Absolutely.
it's something to absolutely keep an eye on and keep reporting about. But so I appreciate that we took the time today, Peter. So no action necessary there.
Correct.
We're going to go ahead, and I think our next item is, unless there's any other questions, I did want to say that it was pointed out to me, thank you, Ian, that there is a caller on the line, and it's been a long time, but I believe it still is *9 to raise your hand, caller.
I also, I can identify the caller as your new colleague.
Oh, Jessica?
Yes.
Oh,
I'm not
okay.
sure what happened to her internet connection, but
Good. Well, that solves the mystery. I was just going to, yeah, there is a *9, I think, still works for anybody who is thinking of calling in, and we just haven't seen a caller in one of our regular meetings in a while. So I just wanted to invite that. And thank you, Peter. Next up, we have a couple of items from the Windham Regional Commission, and I think Sue and Tom are going to be joining us. Welcome, Sue. Hi. Whoop.
I don't understand. Doesn't Jessica want to speak?
Oh, I don't think so, unless she raises her hand.
Oh.
Oh, I think Peter just knew who was calling, so he was just letting us know. Unless I misinterpreted something.
Oh.
Okay. But Jessica is welcome to raise your hand if you would like to ask a question. Sue and Tom, welcome.
Hi, thanks for having us tonight. So Tom and I are here to give you a report. It's kind of an annual report, but I can't remember last year in the, with everything that went down in March. I'm not sure that we actually did this last year. It may have just been a written report. But we are the commissioners for the town of Brattleboro. It's the Windham Regional Commission. So at this time of year, the Windham Regional Commission is looking for new appointments. So it's kind of become the time where we come and talk with you about what we've been doing with the Windham Regional Commission. So I've got a report for you, and then I think we're requesting to be reappointed as commissioners. So if that sounds good, I'll jump in, and Tom's going to contribute as well.
Please.
So if you're not aware, the Windham Regional Commission is the regional planning commission for 27 towns that are basically all the Windham County towns, 1 town in Windsor County, and 3 towns in Bennington. They're considered a political subdivision of the state, and their mission is to assist the towns in southeastern Vermont to provide effective local governance and work collaboratively with them to address regional issues. Their membership is made up of each town has 2 representatives that are appointed from the select boards. Somerset actually only has 1, and then there's 10 citizen interests commissioners for the region as well. Their funding comes from 3 main sources. It's contracts with the state, any federal grants that they might have, and town assessments. And so town assessments make up 5% of the total budget. And that is based on a per capita fee that they assess all the towns. I don't know what the exact number is for Brattleboro. We could ask them if you wanted it, but it's basically for their fiscal year 21, which is October 1st through September 30. It was a little less than 28,000, so it's somewhere between $2 and $2.50 per person. So I'm just not sure what figures they're using for our population. And then they're made up. It's pretty much a strong committee structure. So they have full commission meetings, which are held several times a year, and then there's strong committee work that's done. So both Tom and I sit on different committees. They have a whole range of them covering different topics: community development, transportation, project review, natural resources, energy, and then just some of their own operating committees. So with that, I thought I would turn it over to Tom. He can tell you a little bit about the work that he's been involved with the committees, and then I'll tell you a little bit about what I've been involved with.
Thanks, Tom.
Thanks, Sue. Well, hey, everyone. This is the first time I've spoken at the select board meeting, and thanks for appointing the two of us last year, and as well the former board the year before that. I came to the position through, I was on the planning commission for Brattleboro for a few months, and there became a vacancy with the Windham Regional Commission because of Elizabeth's changing over to be a select board member. So I was pretty new with the planning commission at the town level, but I, was and still am very enthused by it and seeing how I can get involved and represent Brattleboro and then the region as best as I can and improve both. And so it was my understanding that there was a lot to learn, and it would be maybe starting out for me more or less an educational role for a little while. And I'd say in general, that's how the first year was for me. But in this last year, I feel like I've kind of turned a corner and have enough knowledge of the subject matter and the processes and the organizations involved to start being effective. So Sue talked a bit about the organization and the committees, but I'll frame it in a little different way to complement that by saying that most of the actions of the commission happen in the committees. We have full commission meetings and some business does happen in those, but it's comprised of things like having a presentation on a topic that the Windham Regional Commission is dealing with. In this last year, we had presentations from the Connecticut River Conservancy about the hydropower relicensing, from Green Mountain National Forest about, habitats and forest continuity and health, and from the Windham Regional Broadband Project, which I'll talk more about all three of those later, or at least two of those and a couple others. And we also talk about the annual work program and approve it, review the budget and cash flows of the organization. And the executive director, Chris Campany, every meeting presents relevant updates and gives relevant news. So on the committee I'm on, the project review committee, the primary task of it is to review development applications, typically submitted under Act 250, Section 248, and FERC. But there's others as well that have potentially regional importance. And then we assess them to see how they conform or do not conform with the Windham Regional Plan. And in the report that we gave you, I gave a list of several of those that we've worked on in the last year, and I'll take any questions now or later that you guys might have about those. But I'll just run through them real quick without describing. We reviewed the Red Clover Commons Act 250 application. We were reviewing the legislatures and governors' draft bills of revising Act 250. And we proposed changes for the regional plan readoption, submitted a letter of support for the solar preferred site down on exit 1. And that's the gist of it. One thing that I've kind of entered into the project review committee, although it was my committee of choice, and I find it very interesting and educational, but it's, as the chair has said, this is in his 15 or 20 years on it. This is a pretty slow time for projects like this in the region. So I'll hand it back over to Sue, unless there's any questions at this point.
Are there any
Tom.
questions specifically for Tom's role? Or?
But I don't know if Sue, was your idea for questions to be all at the end, or?
Whatever works for the select board.
Okay.
Yeah, I was just going to say, it sounds like even though you had that traditional first year of feeling like a newbie, it feels like you've hit your stride and really still enjoying it.
Yeah, absolutely. I find it very fulfilling to not just learn all the topics, but to have a hand in, implementing improvements to the town and region with that knowledge. So
yeah,
absolutely.
I'm sure it's very interesting. Thanks, Tom.
And I thank you for your service, Tom, because it's not just the planning commission, but this, which is an outgrowth from it. And I
Exactly.
think they fit together nicely. And I thank you for your time.
Ian?
Yeah, Tom, thank you. I can definitely relate to the first year learning year experience. I was just curious, do you intend to stay on project review committee? And if not, are you looking to move to a different one?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. I mean, on one hand, I'm saying it's a little slow, maybe compared to other committees. I'm not sure how the others are though, but on the other hand, I find it very interesting, and I want to continue. I did have, maybe in the last few months, I've been entertaining the idea of joining another committee, but then here in town at the planning commission level, we had a resignation of the chair and I was vice chair. So by default, I'm in that position now. So I think I want to see how that adds to my taking up my free time, and then see if another committee can then fit into that or not down the line.
Can you be more than a member of more than one committee?
Yeah, I think when I signed up, or when I got appointed first 2 years ago, they recommended being on at least 2 or as many as you can. But I figured I'd start off a little slow with what I could handle.
Okay.
But if there's any requests, from the town or the select board about ways that you all want the commissioners to represent the town specifically on certain committees, then please speak up and let us know.
Thanks. Liz?
I just think project review is the real meat and potatoes. And I think that's a great committee for you to be on.
Yeah. Good. Okay, Sue, thank you.
I'll move along. So I sit on 2 committees. I sit on the Planning Coordination Committee and the Brownfields Committee, which is a subcommittee of their Community Development Committee. Planning coordination is an important one. It's we don't meet that often. Basically, we are responsible for reviewing town plans and making sure that they are in compliance with the state statute, so that they can be approved by the Windham Regional Commission. And having an approved town plan for a town brings some benefits. They makes them eligible for grants. It increases the pot of money that's available for grants in Windham, for the Windham region, specifically to municipal planning grants. So it's small, but it's important, and I think I bring some professional skills to help with that. And then Brownfields, the Brownfields Committee has just been really important for Brattleboro. They have brought in, let's see, their Brownfields program started in 2000, and they've brought in over 5.4 million to the region. And I would venture to bet that more than half of it has come to Brattleboro in the form of assessments and cleanups, just because we are the hub, it's where the industry is. And historically has been. So in that committee, in the past year alone, I know I mentioned a couple of sites in the written report, but I've counted 9 sites in Brattleboro have received funding for either assessment or corrective action planning, or low interest loans or grants for actual cleanup activities. So it's a really important program to Brattleboro. Even though we've had our own brownfields funds over the year, we did that to kind of help the region be able to spend it elsewhere. But it was this past year when we were really low on funds. It's just been important to have that relationship and ability to use their funds as well. So that's been great. And I've before I came to work for the town of Brattleboro, I worked with that program. So I've got a long-standing relationship with that. And then I just wanted to touch on some other programs. Being on staff, I also just am familiar with other programs that the Windham Regional Commission offers for the town and other resources that we can take advantage of. Their transportation planning program is one of those important state contracts that they have with VTrans. And it's kind of how we get our voice in planning kind of the regional municipal transportation projects. So they often are doing prioritizing projects, accepting recommendations for projects. So that's an important link for the town as well, because it's part of how we get our voice heard at VTrans. And then through that transportation planning initiative that they have, they will supplement traffic counting. They've done a pretty robust pedestrian counts, and they do monthly bike counts in downtown. So that's some good data that we have. And then this past year, Traffic Safety Committee had some concerns about crosswalks at the intersection of Canal Street and South Main Street, and we were able to work with the Windham Regional Commission to do a crosswalk study to help inform any decisions that we might make. It was done in September during COVID, so the count seemed low, and it's probably something that we'll repeat in the coming year, or at some point, to keep track of that data. But I would say they bring a lot transportation wise for the town. And I can take any questions, or I can throw it back to Tom. He had a couple more points he was going to hit on.
Daniel?
Well, Tom said, if there's a committee you'd like me to be on, speak up. And Tom, I know that, transportation is very important for you. So I wonder, where is your voice within that transportation conversation? Is it present?
At the moment? Yeah, I'm not on the committee, so on the traffic committee. So it's, I guess to the extent that any of it comes to the full commission meetings, I would, learn about it in depth and could comment, but nothing has so far. It's all stayed at the committee level, to my knowledge.
Yeah, they'll reach out to the town staff. So that's kind of how the voice is right now. Neither of us sit on the committee. For me, picking committees had to be around where are my other obligations with boards and committees for the town. So I can't recall when that one meets, but
right. Yeah, but I'll keep that in mind when some time becomes available. I'll put an eye on looking at that committee.
Great, thank you.
Yeah, so I'm going to talk about a few of the Windham Regional's Commission's pursuits that are a bit more at the region level, but have certainly some relevance and impact or potential impact for Brattleboro. The hydropower relicensing is the first one. There's 5 facilities in the general area, I think 2 upstream of us and 3 downstream. And so just to give a little context, it's the relicensing by the acronym FERC, the Federal
Energy Regulatory Commission.
Thank you. Yep. They do this every 30 or 50 years, or the hydropower facilities have to reapply. And that's that narrow window of time, although it may be several years, depending on how things go. Different people and organizations and governments can comment on the application and find deficiencies and make recommendations and pleas and all sorts of things. So the Connecticut River Conservancy has certainly been very vocal about that and has presented at one of our meetings. But also we recently had a project review committee meeting that was in tandem with the Natural Resources Committee. And through that, we talked about how the commission will be writing a joint letter with a couple other regional commissions in the area, one in Mass, one in upriver of us in Vermont. And this is the time right now to highlight deficiencies. And so that's what the subject matter of the letters. And they're bringing up topics such as improving fish passage, protecting cultural and indigenous resources, improving the flows. So that way it changes away from peak releases more to a natural flow. And that will be better for, aquatic habitat and shoreline geology and habitat, as well as preventing erosion and habitat for aquatic organisms. And one thing it will lead to, they say, is less sediment being dropped at the confluences. So, for example, like at the base of the West River, that may end up being a deeper, if these recommendations are approved. accepted, then it might change the mouth of the West River. So, the CRC and the WRC and all the commissioners, for the most part, seem to be in agreement that there's quite a few deficiencies across all these different aspects, and there's a lot that the hydropower facilities should and can do without impacting their economics or their profitability very much. And if we don't get these changes in, then we won't have another chance for 30 or 50 years. So let's see.
If you don't mind.
And then the next.
Oh,
yeah,
sorry. Liz has a hand up, so if you don't mind to.
Yep.
Tom,
questions.
I've mentioned this before to Kathy Offer, but one of the conditions that people are placing on this FERC permit is monitoring. Monitoring that up and down flow of the river and so forth. But if you don't put a trigger mechanism on that monitoring, they'll just monitor forever. So you have to say, you'll monitor, and if you find that there's a problem, then X has to happen. And then you need to define what that X is, what the remedy needs to be, or so forth. Otherwise, it's just monitoring, and they're going to monitor you to death. So please make sure that the people who are making those conditions put some sort of action trigger on the monitoring.
Okay. Jotted that down.
Thank you.
Yep. I'll see what I can do.
Thank you, Tom.
Yeah, and then another big project that's been a matter of discussion is the regional plan update. I think that needs to happen every some odd years. I don't actually know the period. It might be 8 years or so.
8.
Yep. And this current one that we have expires next year, which is pretty soon. And so the strategy that the commission has come up with is just to do a minor plan in the meantime, and that will delay the major plan requirement for some years after that. And a minor plan just updates numbers and, like the closure of Vermont Yankee, just to make the current plan current and accurate. But to give a sense of what the Windham Regional Commission is planning to give the major update, to give a main focus and main theme to changing the regional plan, is to they're framing all of the change under one question, which is, when growth comes, where will it go? And so that's, I think, sort of the subset themes of that is to have climate and flood resilience, and to protect habitat integrity and connectivity, and to achieve compact settlement. So I think those are all themes that we've all been exposed to and are brought up time and again at all the different levels of government. And I think they're good ones personally. So yeah, so when we get to that in the coming years, those will be the main focuses of updating and changing and editing the plan. Another big topic has been the broadband project, the Windham Regional Broadband Project. And the WRC was involved in that by being a part of the team, which involved a WRC staff member as the project manager, and then there was other members from other outside organizations as technical experts. They developed a feasibility study to see how to serve the region with fiber optic, especially for buildings that aren't currently served or that are underserved. And I think that's defined as being 25 megabytes download and 3 upload. If you're below that, it's considered insufficient or underserved. And the feasibility study resulted in the Deerfield Valley Communication Unions District being the one chosen to be the CUD for this whole region, and to expand to represent this whole region. And then the broadband project team developed a business plan to show how this could be feasible and how the rollout would occur. And then they handed it over to that CUD DV Fiber is its name. So I'd like to hear maybe a little bit. I mean, I know Brattleboro has joined on to the CUD, like most towns have so far. But I looked at some of the stats from the Department of Public Service, and 97.2% of our buildings have broadband. So I'm not saying we shouldn't have joined, but I'm just saying that this project potentially benefits us the least out of any other town in the region. But I think the whole region getting broadband is, improving all of the outlying towns is a benefit to us being a hub town. So, for example, Dummerston has 67% broadband and Guilford has 78. Liz?
Yeah, Tom, I just wanted to mention that when the select board voted on that, and first of all, if you want to know more about it, Patrick Moreland is your man because he knows all about it. But one of the reasons that stuck with me is that the places in Brattleboro where it's underserved are what border the other towns. And so by being in the union and all those surrounding towns benefit, then the neighboring properties within Brattleboro will also benefit. And I think that's a point.
Yeah, I would say that it is important to not leave out that 3 to 5% that are underserved by broadband here in Brattleboro, of course. But I think we all recognize there's a little bit of tension between the idea of broadband everywhere and one of your guiding principles, or however you put it, with centralizing and villagizing, because it makes sprawl more attractive in some ways. Not in all ways. It doesn't fix the roads to become non-mud season roads, of course, but it's a big factor in people's expansion into the wilderness, so to speak. So I'm not sure what my point is there, but I'm getting some nods, so I'm glad I said it. Liz.
I just wanted to interject one more thing in that with this new federal money, I'm sure it will include broadband money. And it's important that we're in the CUD because we want to have the most efficient broadband, especially for our students and so forth.
Ian.
Yeah, I think that's a perfect segue, Liz, for my question. I think it seems pretty clear that the Windham Regional Commission's probably going to benefit from some of this COVID relief money based on the fact that Vermont lacks the county system that it seems the COVID bill is sort of structured around. So I'm wondering, has there been any discussion about those funds? I don't know how far along we are in it, but with that really kind of brilliant question, when growth comes, where is it going to go? I would anticipate that the 3 years that we have to spend this money, that would be probably a really good place to be putting some of it. So I don't know, I guess kind of a broad question, but I'm just curious if you got anything on it.
It's a good one.
I think that's a lot to ask of Tom.
Oh, it just
open question. Either of you.
I think it's so new and the guidance is still coming out. There is a full commission meeting. I think I saw that it's next March 30th. So I don't know if there'll be discussions there or, some idea of what they're thinking. I would say that their staff are pretty up to date. And always forward thinking like that. So.
Well, I guess I'll just look forward to hearing about it.
Yeah, it's an interesting.
I just wanted to mention to Ian that, we don't have to wait for the Windham Regional Commission. We're our own actors, and I'm sure that Peter and all of us and the VLCT and our legislators will together figure out how and when and where to get that money.
Indeed. I'm going to take a hand from our public, and Gary Stroud has a hand up. I had a feeling we'd hear from you, Gary, before Saturday.
Absolutely. This question is for my friend Tom. Tom, quick question. You mentioned broadband. As far as for businesses, is that a good incentive, or would it be a tax incentive for new businesses coming into town? Because that was a big thing during COVID, people going online. As we know, Zoom is here to stay. I think a lot of businesses now are doing to-go orders, and that's going to probably be a big thing. What is the benefits, I guess, and the pros and cons for that? And can that be also something that can be marketed as an incentive for people to come into the town to do business with Brattleboro? What's your thoughts on that?
Well, I can make a guess here that that probably the majority or all of the places where commercial and industrial businesses can occur in these towns, at least the ones with zoning, are going to be in locations that already have broadband, probably. So unless we're talking about the sort of home occupations or home businesses like garages and forestry and ag and sort of home-based smaller businesses typically, where that don't currently have broadband, I think the majority that are in conventional business districts already do. Does that answer your question? Or
well, I guess with businesses coming in, like even with hospitals and also with our state officials, they mentioned broadband to improve with like unemployment to, because we have a lot of old systems incorporated, we're trying to update.
Right.
That type of network would improve connectivity.
Well, I think the rollout of fiber, maybe, which is happening because of the federal money coming down, like we've seen downtown here, that may speak more, answer more to your question about hospitals and institutions and big businesses getting faster speed. But as far as the speeds that DV Fiber, the CUD, is providing out to rural, Jacksonville and Windham and stuff, I'm not sure if that's fiber speed or the bare minimum of broadband. I'm not sure.
Right, because I see that helped in a couple of towns further upstate that broadband helped out business-wise with them because of the slow speeds. A lot of them are still on dial-up versus now Consolidated was just up there updating their fiber optics. I think they're up to 2G now. So Xfinity decided to get out there and started updating their stuff. So there's going to be a bit of a situation going on here with that particular broadband, and then with money-wise and all that. But that's something.
Rollout, I've skimmed through it, and the rollout is focusing on the unserved peoples and buildings first, and then the underserved, and then I think upgrading speeds that already exist, the low end of broadband, and upgrading those is the last priority. But as far as what they're getting unserved and underserved people, what speeds they're getting them, I don't know what it is, but it's certainly broadband speeds like I have, at my house here downtown, 25/4 or whatever it is, 30/5, which is adequate for me, but not maybe big businesses.
Or someone with a couple of kids on Zoom at the same time. Thanks, Gary. I'm going to go to Daniel because Daniel had a comment probably right around your question.
Yeah, no, some of our earlier conversations around like broadband and municipal broadband and all that are sort of coming back to me now. And this definition of like served by broadband is that 25 download, 3 upload standard, right? And I think what we've seen when we all transitioned, well, not all of us, but a chunk of us transitioned to working from home, is that minimum standard doesn't quite cut it, right? And I think Gary's question is sort of getting to like, is there going to be some exciting, high speed connectivity that's going to bring businesses and residents here, and that conversation that you just had whilst I was kind of pondering that sort of speaks to many of the pieces of it. And this fiber rollout that Consolidated has been doing is interesting, and it is one company doing it, so we'll see what the price point looks like. Yeah, but I don't know. I mean, I think the idea of like growth and density and, if you have fiber to every premises, as Tim kind of mentioned earlier, like, we do get into a situation where we could be like encouraging development on the edges as opposed to, in the centers. But all of these things are interesting things to kick around. And I'm glad that Tom and Sue represent as well at the regional commission. And I really believe in Chris Campany as well. I think he's great. And exciting times ahead, I'm sure.
Thanks, Daniel. Ian.
Yeah, thank you so much for all your work. I'm excited to reappoint you onto it.
Thank you. Can I add just a final point about kind of a big project that the WRC is involved with? It's you all maybe know more about this in general than I do, although what's going on at the state level and with the and how it's impacting municipalities and such. But this organization called the Climate Council has been formed, and Executive Director Chris Campany has been appointed on it as having a main role of representing the perspective of municipal governments. So he'd be the guy to talk to represent, to Brattleboro the most. And I, assume any other town in Vermont would go to him as well to do such. But if you all don't know, the council's main task is to develop a plan to meet the legally mandated state greenhouse gas reduction targets. And to do that, they're mandated to focus on specific themes. And so bringing up some things we just brought up, like smart growth, carbon sequestration, and achieving net zero, reducing energy burdens on rural and marginalized folks, limiting contributing chemicals to the greenhouse gases or situation, developing resilience, adaptation, and mitigation around climate change, on working lands, on natural systems, and in Vermont communities. So they have a pretty defined framework for moving forward, but how they will and what they'll say and what they'll recommend is yet to be seen. They do have a schedule of by this October, they need to have a draft plan available, or that's when it will be available for public comment. So we can keep apprised of that and see what they're recommending. That will impact all of us. And as far as mandates and programs and maybe funding, and make comments on that.
Great, thank you. Liz.
Well, that's very important, Tom. I wondered, is Chris reaching out to the town of Brattleboro for input?
Right. So right now it's they're still in the developing the subcommittees and fleshing them out and getting situated. So they haven't really started the meat and potatoes work yet. But I'll make a note of that and ask him to not forget us. Not that he does, but I'll give him a little nudge, a reminder.
That'd be great, Tom.
I'm sure if the next board wanted to organize either you advocating as being go-betweens or having Chris come talk to him himself, that we could make that happen. So.
Sure.
And I know Chris has had a conversation with Stephen Dotson about possibly sitting on one of the subcommittees as well. So Tom is right, they're forming subcommittees at this point. They haven't started outreach.
Great.
Terrific. Was that it from you both, or did you have any other points? Or
yeah, I would just add real briefly. They've provided a lot of other support, trails, stormwater grant funding. So as a staff member, I have fairly frequent contact, and I know other departments do as well. So hope we've given you a little bit of what it's like over there and what they provide to Brattleboro and how we contribute.
Absolutely. Thank you very much. Board members, we have a conveniently sort of two-part motion.
Oh, Tim, Brandy's got her hand up.
Oh, gosh. Brandy, do you need to, let's see. I think maybe you were muted and you didn't want to be.
There, I muted myself on accident, and I just wanted to say I'm still here, and then I'm still not gonna be using my camera right now. I'm not able to do that. But.
That's fine. I did know you. I checked to make sure you were still here. I didn't realize you didn't want to be muted, so thank you.
Yeah. Okay.
Oh, that was it. So, do we have a motion? Liz.
I move to accept the annual report from Brattleboro's Windham Regional Commission members and to reappoint Tom Mazakowski and Sue Filion as Brattleboro's commissioners for 2021 to 2022.
Thank you, Liz. Liz has moved to accept the annual report from Brattleboro's Windham Regional Commission members and to reappoint Tom Mazakowski and Sue Filion as Brattleboro's commissioners for 2021 to 2022. All those in favor, please raise your hand and say aye.
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 And I think I heard Brandy too. So
You did.
yeah, and a hand. Thank you. So
I'll
that's
get it.
5-0. I have to watch for those blue hands now. Thanks again to Tom and Sue. Next up, we have to talk about cemetery maintenance. Cemeteries are a place we all have an appointment with at some point. Carol?
Okay.
Don't tell me when mine is. I don't want to know.
I don't have that crystal ball, so I'm unable to answer that for you at this time. Good evening. I'm here this evening to discuss the annual seasonal maintenance contract for both Prospect Hill and Morningside Cemetery. We had a bid opening on March 3rd, and we received 2 bids this year, one of which we were unable to accept because it didn't meet bid specifications. And the second one certainly fell within our budget. This cemetery maintenance is unique as it falls over 2 budget years because we can't wait till July 1st to start maintaining our green space. So we have a balance in this year's budget of $14,620. Then we move into the next fiscal year where we have $24,000. So with that being said, the second bid that we received was from Independent Landscape and Property Management for $15,800. They're the same company that did the work last summer, and we're going into it with a contract savings of $1,200 from last year's contract year, which was pretty exciting to announce. So with that being said, I'd like to recommend to the board that the bid be awarded to Independent Landscape and Property Management out of Newfane for $15,800.
Thanks, Carol. Board members, any questions about cemetery maintenance? No? Then I would accept a motion.
I've got a motion.
Thanks, Ian.
I move to award the bid for cemetery maintenance services to Independent Landscape and Property Management in the amount of $15,800.
Ian has made a motion to award the bid for cemetery maintenance services to Independent Landscape and Property Management in the amount of $15,800. All those board members in favor, raise your hand and say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Oh, I didn't
That's
get the hand.
5-0. And Carol's going to stay with us because you're going to give me some information on playground upgrades.
Right. So this is a pretty exciting announcement here that we received a donation from the Vermont Community Foundation Withington Fund of $74,700 to upgrade the playground equipment and site furnishings at both Pine Street Park and South Main Street Park. We felt it was very important going into this project that we gathered community involvement. So we worked with the planning department, and we were able to secure names and addresses of local neighbors of both parks. And we developed a survey monkey to gather that information. We received over 30 responses. And with those responses, we've got the types of equipment that people wanted to see. Did they want to see traditional? Did they want to see a combination of traditional and a little more of the contemporary? So with all that being said, I think we have two exciting plans for both Pine Street and South Main. A little bit the same, but also a little bit different. The playground equipment out at South Main will include what's called Spider Mountain. It will include a 6-foot double velocity slide, a double bay single post swing set. So what that would give us is 4 swings, 2 of which would be a belt swing, 1 which would be a handicap, and 1 would be a toddler swing. And in addition to that, we would be purchasing swing mats because every playground you go to, you see that nice little dip underneath all those swings. We were also going to purchase some swing mats so that goes just under the play surface so that you don't get as deep of a hole. And then we continue on with a park bench and picnic tables. And for that site, we're talking about a total price of $33,550 for the play equipment.
Mm-hmm.
South Main Street, what we would be doing is we would put in a fire station climber. Again, another 6-foot double velocity slide. The double bay single post swing set, like I just described. We'd also be purchasing the wear mats as well to go under the swings, park bench, and picnic tables. So the total cost for the equipment for both sites comes to $54,900, which would give us a balance to work in that area, to work with for beautification, site work, installation, and the park maintenance. The park maintenance supervisor is a certified playground inspector, so that allows us to do this work in-house, so that we can put the money that we have into the play value for the equipment versus paying for installation when we can do that in-house. Mm-hmm. So, we've been working with a company out of Westboro, Mass, called New England Recreation Group, and they are part of an organization called the Massachusetts Higher Education Consortium, which is much like a state bid, but it's a New England bid. And so that they have gone through the vetting process to be a playground supplier. So with that, I would open up for questions if you have any.
I saw Ian's hand first, and Ian, I'm going to answer your question for you. Double velocity doesn't mean they go twice as fast. It means you have 2 choices of velocity.
It should be called dual velocity as opposed to double velocity.
So we'll go on to Daniel's question now. Ian, go ahead.
Thank you very much, Tim. Carol, thank you so much for your presentation. I really, you answered my question, so I really wanted just to commend you on your looking to community input on this. And, I really, I don't think intimate is the right word, but, for me, playgrounds are like a very personal, like I think about the one that my mom took me to every day when I was a little kid, and I can still think of, remember very clearly the layout and all of it. And so the fact that you looked to ask the community that will bring their children to this playground what they were looking for, it really, when I saw that in your memo, I was really happy to see that. And I think that that's an example that we should continue to try to utilize when we're doing things that are going to impact people in such a real way. So yeah, I think my only question was, did you feel like the SurveyMonkey and the way that it was put out was an effective way of asking for community involvement, or would you have changed it now that you got the results?
I felt like it was a pretty effective way because we even got right down to colors, allowing the community to pick, the neighbors to pick the colors in the neighborhood. Interesting enough, everybody has a green base, so I felt it was very effective. And I do want to thank the planning department that helped us out on this, but both with the SurveyMonkey and being able to establish the perimeter of the neighbors to seek that information.
Yeah, I think it's great.
Daniel.
Yeah, I also was really happy about the outreach that was done to the community. So I have two questions. The first is, what the heck is the Spider Mountain? And the second is, were there themes that arose from the outreach, or was it more what do you want to see, pick from a list?
What do I did? Let me answer the Spider Mountain. Spider Mountain consists of basically 3 items. It is a pretty good sized boulder that is a climbing boulder. So which will allow, several kids to climb up on this boulder. And then there is roping that goes from a boulder to a stand-up pole. And the roping is a spider web. And I don't know how many of you have been down to West River Park, but it's a lot of that roping type play structure we have there. It's that type of thing. Again, another climbing, climbing apparatus, but different type of climbing.
Good. Okay. So not a mountain full of spiders.
Right. Not a mountain full of spiders. And your second question was?
Just, whether the kind of outreach that you did to the community, whether that was asking for them to kind of, I don't know, answer questions that were sort of open-ended, where you might have got themes from what they were kind of talking about, or whether it was more we're thinking of installing some new equipment, which of these things would you like? Or some combination of the two?
It was a combination, because what I did is I sent the website out to them, and they didn't come back and say spider climber, or they didn't come back and say fire station climber. That's not the type of feedback. It was climbing, swings, slides, colors, that type of feedback.
Great. Yeah. And I agree with Ian. I hope that we'll continue to do this sort of targeted outreach to folks that are impacted by the stuff we build in their communities. Great. Thank you.
Thanks, Carol. Liz?
I just want to commend you, Carol. This sounds great. And, the SurveyMonkey was the perfect answer to COVID. Because I know you would have had a meeting if that were possible. And you got the money from the Worthington Fund, and you went to this consortium, and it all just sounds wonderful. So thank you very much.
Thank you.
I know you can't see my hand, but I just want to pile on the praise too. I've been nodding enthusiastically, even though all you can see is a somewhat kind of cranky looking picture of me on my screen, but I'm actually going, oh, that sounds really cool. And I'm very excited about it. So.
Great. Thanks, Brandy. Just so you know, we don't see the picture, but I'm not sure.
Oh, weird. I see it. And
why.
It's not a happy face that I see.
At least I don't see it.
Oh.
I see a smiling picture.
Yeah, I see it.
Yeah.
Happy face.
What? I don't see it.
It's if you choose to hide non-video participants or not.
Oh, no. Or maybe it's because I'm a co-host. I don't know.
How weird.
Mysteries of 2021. Thank you once again, Carol. Board members, do you have a a motion to share?
Yeah, I can do it. Let's see. I move to authorize the purchase of playground equipment for South Main Street Park in the amount of $33,550 and for Pine Street Park in the amount of $21,350.
Thank you, Daniel. Daniel has made a motion to authorize the purchase of playground equipment for South Main Street Park in the amount of $33,550 and for Pine Street Park in the amount of $21,350. All those in favor, raise your hand, say aye.
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 Perfect timing. I saw Brandy's hand that time. That's 5-0. Thank you so much, Carol, for all the work and helping to provide some great play opportunities for our younger ones or older ones too.
Great. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Carol.
Next, we have a break we could take, but we could also try to squeeze the last few things in. What do you think about that, Peter? Will we make it? Yeah.
I think you can probably get done by 8:15 if you want to keep going.
I'm going to hope that Janet and crew might wave if that's not okay. Okay, thank you. Very clear on that one. The next item is, well, as we all should know by now, representative town meeting is this coming Saturday, March 20, 2021 at 8:30 a.m. Sort of right here, but not exactly, on Zoom. And all of that info, of course, is in front of people who are going to be participating, and the public's going to be participating, I believe, by phone only.
Correct.
But it's a big moment that we have to do. Oh, I'm sorry. Got a message to unmute Ian. There we go. I think.
Thank you.
There. We have to assign the motions, which is done every year. We can kind of just do sort of a round robin thing if you'd like. I'm just going by the book myself, but if there's a better way to do it, Peter, you can tip me off.
Yeah, excuse me for interrupting, but I think the better way, because of the preliminary motions, would be to use the document that's in your backup materials.
Oh, darn it. Okay.
There are 3 preliminary motions, I believe, and then all the articles.
Yep.
Yep, 3 preliminary.
Okay, let me do that. Of course, I won't be able to write on my screen. I didn't print this one out, but I'll do it on my book.
I have a question.
Yes.
Whatever we decide, Peter will give us a script with those assignments on it, so I don't have to write it down.
No, that's right. You don't have to write it down. We'll be taking good notes, and then it'll be typed up, and we intend to distribute it not just to the select board members and the moderator and so on, but actually to every RTM member so that folks can follow along and see what's coming. We used to make that available when we were having in-person RTM. The printed motions were available on the table. Last year when we did it in this format, people asked, where's the motions? And of course, we hadn't sent them out because we were doing it on Zoom, but that's one of the things that we took note of from last year as a way to improve. And so that'll be sent out before Saturday to every RTM member.
Super.
Okay.
So I recall back in September, the way we did this was we said Tim, Liz, Brandy, Ian, Daniel, or something like that, and then just.
That's what I was going to say. Is that what we did?
Yeah.
Something like that. Yeah.
Yeah.
I'll just do it again.
I wrote down in alphabetical order. It goes Ian, Liz, Daniel, Brandy, Tim. So if you want to do it.
Oh, I was thinking more hierarchical.
Whoa.
That's why they pay you the big bucks.
Well, I initially started to write it down with first name alphabetical, and then I realized that I'm not sure if Liz is Liz or Elizabeth, so I went to the last names. Anyway, so Peter, do you want to help us out and just go down the list, or?
Sure, although I have to say now I'm totally confused as to in which order. So.
Let's do alphabetical.
Okay. By last name.
Yeah. So
All right. So Ian will do preliminary motion number 1. Ian Ichiwedes. It's a
Okay. Okay.
I didn't know that at all.
Oh, man.
Preliminary motion number 2 will be Daniel. No, I'm sorry. Yes.
I have
No, Liz.
No.
This
Quit.
is a good test of whether you know your
See what
alphabet.
happens when you make me do
So we've got
things like look at letters.
Good now, McLaughlin.
Ay,
And
ay, ay.
then
Whip.
Okay.
Whip, Star, Wessel.
Thank you. So Daniel, you get preliminary motion number 3.
Right.
And then Brandy, Article 1. And Tim, Article 2, which brings us back to Ian for Article 3. And then Liz for Article 4. And Daniel for Article 5. Randy for Article 6. And Tim for Article 7. Ian, Article 8. Liz, Article 9. Daniel, Article 10. There is no motion on Article 11 because that's the financing for the water treatment facilities, which will be voted by ballot. So 12 is
Brandy.
Brandy.
Okay.
13 is Tim. 14
Uh-oh.
is Ian.
I didn't plan that out.
Did you actually plan this all out?
I have
Looking
something
forward to
say
that
about
one.
in a bit.
16 is Daniel. 17 is Brandy.
Wait, did you skip
18
me?
is, I'm sorry? Did I
Did
get it
you go
wrong?
from Ian to Daniel?
I didn't think so. Nope. So Ian is 14.
Uh-huh.
Liz is 15.
Okay.
Daniel is 16. Brandy 17.
Okay.
Tim is the big winner. He's got 18, which is human services. So next to Ian with preliminary motion number 1, Tim gets the prize for long ones.
Okay, I accept this now.
Back to Ian for 19 and to Liz for 20. We have Daniel for 21, Brandy for 22, Tim for 23.
Okay.
Ian 24, Liz 25, Daniel 26, Randy 27, and 28 doesn't require a motion. It's the other business. There is one other item in all prior years, at least when I've been involved, that would be the end of this exercise. This time, because you are asking Representative Town Meeting to provide guidance to the Select Board on how much funding to provide in next year's budget for human services, Article 19 has a blank in it. Because if you want to be specific about whether you want percentage funding advice or flat dollar amount advice, we need to reflect that in the motion. If you just want to say, well, actually, so the posing of the question is just what amount? Is there any guidance that you want to provide about the amount? To make a motion, you've got to be specific. So the board should, for the purposes of launching that conversation on Saturday, either pick a percentage or pick a flat dollar amount so that when Ian makes that motion, he can be specific.
We need to decide that tonight.
You should decide that tonight, yes, so that we can produce this motions document and get it distributed.
Okay, I saw hands from Daniel and Liz. I honestly didn't see who went up first, so.
Daniel can go.
Yeah, thanks. I actually did some pondering on this, imagine that, in the last few days. And I was like, wait a second, shouldn't it say like of no more than like if town meeting gives us a dollar amount, say, I don't know, $200,000, whatever, and then then we get applications for funding and it's less than the 200,000, we'll be in the same boat that we were in this year.
Yeah.
And I was just wondering if there was anything to be done about that, or if that would need to be an amendment on the day.
Peter?
So I think there's a reasonable probability that this one will get amended anyway, honestly, just because of the level of community interest and some pretty strong feelings that folks have based on, what we've seen in prior years.
Mm-hmm.
But nevertheless, you need to launch it in the way that you think is going to be the most constructive. And if the group of you is inclined to follow what Daniel just offered, I think the best way to do that would be to say up to. So you'd fill in this blank with up to, but you'd also need to pick a number or a percent.
I do like the up to.
I think Liz was next in the order, and then Ian.
I vote for either 1% or 1.5%.
Wait a minute.
Of the budget.
Right.
Okay. Yeah, were you looking for a specific number? I thought you were looking for us to decide whether it was percentage or specific number.
So that factors into the discussion. What we need to end up with is a motion that would be acceptable for debate. So it's got to be clear enough that it's actually saying this is what it is. I recognize that you're not going to make the decision, RTM is, but you've got to put it on the floor in a way that is specific, either as a percentage or as a flat dollar amount.
Okay, I'll save my comment till the end then. Daniel, do you have a follow-up to your first, or should I go to Ian?
No, you should go to Ian.
Okay, Ian.
Okay, two points. The first one is a question to Peter. Can you just explain to me how we were able to warn these articles per the statutory requirement for timing while keeping this so ambiguous?
Because same reason, actually, the best example is to look at the budget article, Article 20.
Yeah.
You have to warn it as a question of, shall something happen, right? But when you make the motion, you've got to be very specific about what you want to have happen. So Article 20, as an example, is, as it has always been worded, to see how much money the town will raise, appropriate, and expend to defray all of its expenses and liabilities, in addition to any funds authorized for any other articles in these warnings. But then, there's 3 lines of text that are sufficient for the warning to tell the community this is what's going to be considered. The motion is half a page long because it includes a lot of language regarding the manner of expenditure and taxation and deadlines and penalties.
All right, Tim, if I may follow up. So I think then, sort of going off of now just to the question as to what we want to put in there, I want to just go back to when we decided to put this article on. We wanted to give RTM an opportunity to really debate this issue with enough time, and that it wouldn't come up at the other non-warned items. And so in light of that, and to try to honor that, I think it would make sense to not put an amount or a percentage, a specific number, but instead to just pick are we talking apples or are we talking oranges? So as far as which one of those two, it seems like percent is kind of the language that's been used in the past. So I find myself moving towards, framing it in a percentage. But I would be happy to hear more for an argument for amount.
Peter.
I'm sorry, actually, I think I misunderstood you, Ian. The reason I asked for the floor is I thought you didn't want to be specific about the amount.
Dollar amount. Like.
Oh, okay. Then I did understand you. So the clarification I want to offer is, I hear you speaking for percentage rather than for flat dollar amount. that's certainly at the board's discretion, and that's one of the decisions you need to make tonight. But you actually do need to be specific, even though you may not all agree about exactly what figure you'd like to see ultimately approved by RTM. You need to float a specific amount or specific, so in other words, if you've suggested percent, Liz was saying 1 or 1.5, either one of those would be fine. A different number would be fine too, but you'd need to put a number in along with saying that you want it to be the percentage, because it's got to be an actual action that the floor can then approve. So posing a question in your motion isn't sufficient.
Okay, I apologize that I misunderstood that.
I
I just have an informational question to ask Peter.
Yeah, let's go with Liz. Dan, you've already spoken to it, but you'll be next.
What's the total budget this year, Peter?
Total budget is 19 million and some more. I can get it in front of me if you want. Let me say, if you all were inclined to do the percentage, then I don't have an opinion to offer or a guidance to offer about what percentage you ought to attach to it. What I would say is it would be good to include the words of the FY22 budget with the percentage, so we can actually calculate that number, right? So that we know what's in the FY22 budget once it's been approved. We can then calculate the guidance percentage number against that total budget and know what number is the target for FY23. If you just say percentage, X percentage, it won't be an identifiable number until we're doing all of the pushing and tugging with the 23 budget.
Daniel, and I think, Brandy, are you saying something?
Well, I was going to, but now I'm stumped after that last sentence because I was going to. Yeah, I have to think now.
Okay. Should I let Daniel go?
Oh, yeah.
Go ahead, Dan.
I wasn't fully prepared that we would need to figure this out.
I don't think anybody.
But that's okay. That's okay. I guess I would put in 2% just because that's what the Human Services Review Committee thought they were working with, and that's sort of the question we're kind of asking the body of town meeting to wrestle with: is this the appropriate amount?
Yeah.
And that's that's what I think. I can understand why you would want to put in less, but I think that's like the question that we wanted to answer.
Liz.
Just have another question about the totality of the budget again, Peter. Weren't things moved around? So things that usually happen in the spring outside of the budget were moved into the budget, and there was kind of a jump in the budget because of that?
Ask the question again, I'm sorry.
This year's total budget, wasn't it increased because something that is usually outside of this budget was moved into it?
Solid waste. So
yeah.
Solid waste has been off the budget since the pay-as-you-throw program was created, and we're bringing it back into the general fund.
And so that increased the annual budget significantly?
About $300,000.
Yeah.
$19.5 million budget. I'm gonna get the real number in front of me so that I can answer your question.
So I'm thinking that here's just my thinking is based on the fact that $200,000 seems like a healthy amount, and more than that, it kind of reminds me of what Ann Fielder said, that if it were, let's say, $400,000, that's equivalent to what a private foundation has, and those decisions are made on a full-time basis with a staff and blah, blah, blah. So I'm thinking that it's more appropriate for this volunteer RTM committee to have $200,000, which is generous but more in line with tradition.
Peter.
I want
And
to
then
put a fact into play. The answer to your question, Liz, about the total proposed FY22 budget is 19,658,991.
Okay.
About $19.7 million.
Let me just butt in because I haven't said anything. And then I just want to get consensus on, we're all heading towards the percentage methodology, right? Because, oh, not you, Daniel, or?
I just was pondering a different way to, approach it, but you should finish your thought.
Well, I mean, I don't understand why a select board would put forward an amount that's higher than the current amount. That seems very odd to me. I would be happy with making the initial motion 1% of FY22, and then it'll go from there. That's RTM's, that's the job of RTM. I'm fine also with 1.5 because that's where it sits now, or 1.6, but that's a little awkward. I'm fine with that too if that's a easy vote for this board. But 2 is actually higher than currently, and that puts the whole, conversation on a quite different footing, in my opinion, and it colors the conversation. Ian.
Yeah, I was about to volunteer putting I am still on percentage. Daniel, the reason I think percentage is the way to go is because that's going to, I think, encourage the best dialogue in RTM, to actually talk about a percentage of an amount of the budget, because the budget's going to change every year. And this is a discussion about where Brattleboro wants to be in its funding of this particular thing. So I'm sticking with percentage. I would say, let's just do the amount that we're putting in for FY22. So it's 1.6, right? Like that's what we've agreed on to recommend to RTM. And it's not the 2%, which I can understand where Daniel's coming from. And it's not the 1%, which I can also understand where you're coming from. It kind of hits it in the middle. And I think, honestly, it's going to be discussed at length, and they're going to move it around or do whatever they want. So seems like a good jumping off point.
Daniel.
Yeah, I think that's great. And that's kind of what I was going to offer. I was just going to come at it with the number. I was going to be like, well, why don't we just put in the number that is there, for the total human services. But Ian, I think the percentage is a better way to go about it.
Well, it is. And remember, this article is designed to try to future-proof this whole thing a little bit. So
yeah.
The number that is there, well, 1.6% of this new budget is a lot more than the number that we have in this budget because of what I mentioned about this, the switcheroo on the solid waste.
Yep. Right.
Peter?
It's the 276,400, which is the recommended number in the proposed budget for consideration Saturday, is actually 1.4% of the 19,658, et cetera. So if you, based on the conversation you've had, you seem to be just about to rally around putting the same percentage in for starting the conversation around what we're going to do in the future, put in the same percentage as what's reflected in your recommended budget. If that's where the group of you has landed, that would be, the phraseology would be up to 1.4%.
Okay.
Let me hear from Brandy before, because I'm getting a lot of nods and everything, but to be fair to Brandy, I haven't been able to see your face reaction. So.
Oh, thank you. I've been nodding too, forgetting that nobody can see me. Yes, I think moving forward with what we're proposing it feels consistent between the proposal and the article. I think it's going to work best that way, and they'll modify and amend, and whatever needs to take place will take place.
Great. Ian?
I just want to make sure, Peter, I understand. Did I just have the number wrong, or are you saying with the additional amount of the 300,000 that moves it down to 1.4?
Yeah, I don't know where you got 1.6 from.
Oh, I just had the number wrong.
What's been in the town report the entire time, what came out of the action that you all took in January to finalize this budget
Okay.
was 1.4%.
Somebody said 1.6, and it may have come from before the
Yeah, I don't know where I have
waste
it.
was accounted for. I'm not sure, but
Okay, so yeah, then I apologize to the board if I confuse anybody with using the wrong number.
And all we need to do is give people something to start with and then step back.
Yep.
So do you want me to repeat what I think the actual motion will be? Is that just to make things clear for everybody? Is that going to be, I move to direct the select board to include did you have a number after the 4? 1.4? No, okay.
Can I read it?
Yes.
Thank
All
you.
right, Peter.
Didn't mean that to be funny, but I see why it was.
Simon.
So here's what I have. The motion would be, I move to direct the select board to include up to 1.4% in the FY23 budget to be allocated to human services funding. I think we should change the word into of there, actually. So it would be up to 1% of the FY23 budget to be allocated to human services funding.
Yes.
Are
Okay.
you also training to be a lawyer there, Peter?
I'm sure he's
I'm sure
hung
he
around
made his
enough.
choice. Yeah.
Okay, I'm going to say as so spoken right there. We don't need to vote on that, do we?
You do not need to vote on that. And I'll apologize for my very poor estimation of how long it would take us to get done with the rest of this. We got 2 short items left, and I still think you ought to keep going, but it is 8:21. Sorry.
I mean, unless I get the thumbs down from Elizabeth, because, or no, there you are right there. Okay. Before you appeared, just for the thumbs. Thank you. We have 2 more very quick things. One is to schedule our annual organizational meeting, which is something we have to do to reorganize everyone. This will be exciting. Everyone will be on the edge of their seats. I want to just ask, why is it always 5:30? I still don't understand that. It's been 4 years.
It doesn't have to be 5:30. That's tradition. That's not statute or charter or anything like that. So y'all can decide if you want it to be a different time.
I'm just wondering how many people we lose because people assume it's going to be 6:15 because every single meeting we do is at 6:15.
Yeah.
Does anybody have an objection to just making it 6:15?
No, and I think people probably remember 6:15 more than, oh, it's annual meeting at 5:30 time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We should just ask if it's okay with Jess.
Yeah,
schedule.
sure. Very good point.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Oh, and Hillary.
And Hillary.
And Hillary. Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
So
Well-
Hillary's not in the meeting, but I'm confident that 45 minutes isn't going to make a difference. It's a short meeting, as you know. I'm sure Hillary can do 6:15. I'll say so on her behalf and hope that ends up being true.
Indeed.
Jeff is in the meeting.
We also need Jess to be there.
Yeah. So we should. Yep.
And
Okay.
I will unmute. I'm very slow at this. Patrick's much faster. There she is. How's that timing for you if it's just 6:15 like every other meeting we do? Can't hear you.
I think she put her thumbs
saw a
up and
thumb
said
up.
that's fine.
Okay. I don't know why you can't.
Get that microphone fixed before
Is that
Saturday.
a thumbs up?
Yep. I don't know, Tim, do you think we can debate this a little longer about the timing for?
Whoa.
Getting abused. Committee and board appointments. Peter? No. Who wants to go through this? I have to bring it up.
There's one commission in play here this evening, 2 vacancies, 2 applicants. The nominations that are shown on your administrative report. If somebody makes that nomination, you could approve them as a slate.
All right. One of those names is very familiar. Actually, they're both very familiar to me. I know both of those people. Liz.
I move to nominate Kate Barry and Gary Stroud to fill 2 vacant planning commission spots.
Love it.
Great. Seeing no other nominations, all those in favor of that slate of Kate Barry and Gary Stroud to fill the 2 slots, raise your hand, say aye. Aye.
Aye.
5-0. Thank you. And congratulations, Brandy. You've made it to the end.
Congratulations.
Yay.
Thank you, Brandy.
Thank you.
And condolences. Any other
Point
motion?
of information,
Certainly.
getting my practice in for Saturday.
Wow.
What about reminding folks that it's the water treatment plant
Thank you.
information meeting tomorrow at
7:30.
10:30.
See, it's not at 6:15, at 7:30 on Zoom.
Absolutely. Yes.
And the Zoom link is in the town report and also on the town's website.
Yes. Very important project and information. We will all join you there tomorrow. Gary, we appointed you.
Maybe Gary wants to make a motion to adjourn.
You can't do that.
I know.
Quick, Gary. Oh,
I just want to say thank you all. Looking forward to seeing you Saturday. Eat your Wheaties, Ian. You're getting taller. We're going to need IMAX theater for you. It's like you're reaching the ceiling over there. But I appreciate the indoctrination and looking forward to seeing everybody 8:30 in the morning on Saturday. Bring lots of coffee.
Gary. And tune in tomorrow night, 7:30.
Absolutely. Be there. And get your shots, people.
Working on it.
Okay.
Daniel.
I move to adjourn.
Daniel has moved to adjourn. All those in favor, please raise your hand. Say aye.
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 Brandy, thanks everybody. That's 5-0. And thank you for tuning in. And thank you to our ASL interpreters for putting up with our tardiness.